Listen carefully. Because your life in 2026 will not be decided by luck. It will be decided by your habits. Right now, you are repeating patterns. The way you think, the way you react, the way you spend your time. And those patterns are either building your future or destroying it. The truth is simple. You don't rise to success. You fall to your habits. But here's the good news. Habits can be changed. Your mindset can be rewired. Your life can be rebuilt. In this audiobook, you will learn 5 powerful habits that will transform how you think, act, and live. Because when you change your habits, you change everything. Chapter 1. Stop reacting, start controlling. Most people don't live with control. They live on autopilot. They wake up and react. They face problems and react. They deal with stress, pressure, and react. No pause. No awareness. No discipline. Just reaction. And reaction is dangerous. Because every time you react emotionally, you give away your power. Understand this clearly. If you can't control your reactions, you can't control your life. Say it again. If you can't control your reactions, you can't control your life. That's the foundation of everything. Your success, your relationships, your peace. All of it depends on one thing: your ability to stay in control. But most people fail here. Why? Because they believe their emotions are in charge. They think, I felt angry, so I reacted. I felt stressed, so I snapped. I felt disrespected, so I responded. No, that's not truth. That's a lack of discipline. Because between what happens and how you respond, there is a gap, a small moment. And in that moment, you have a choice. Say it again. You have a choice. That's the key. But most people never use it. They skip the gap. They go straight from trigger to reaction. And that's where they lose. So today, you change that. You install one rule into your life. Pause. Then decide. Say it again. Pause. Then decide. Simple. Powerful. Transformational. Let's make it real. You're in a conversation. Someone says something disrespectful. Instantly you feel it. Anger. Your body reacts. Your thoughts speed up. Your ego steps in. You want to respond. You want to defend. You want to prove. That's reaction. And if you act in that moment, you lose control. You say things you don't mean. You escalate the situation. You damage your image. All in seconds. Now imagine something different. Same situation. Same words. But this time, you pause. Just 1 second. No words. No reaction. You feel the emotion, but you don't act on it. You observe it. And then, you decide. Maybe you respond calmly. Maybe you ignore it completely. Maybe you address it later. But whatever you do, it's controlled. That's power. Control is built in the pause. Say it again. Control is built in the pause. Not in reacting faster. Not in speaking louder. Not in proving your point. In pausing. Because the pause creates awareness. And awareness creates control. That's the system. Let's go deeper. Think about arguments. Most arguments don't start because of logic. They start because of reaction. Someone says something, the other reacts. Then it escalates. Back and forth. Emotion versus emotion. And nobody wins. Why? Because no one paused. Because no one took control. But you're different now. You don't react instantly. You create space. You slow things down. You stay calm. Because you understand. Winning is not about being right. It's about staying in control. That's the shift. Now let's talk about stress. Something goes wrong. A delay? A mistake? A problem? Most people panic. They overreact. They complain. They lose focus. And that makes the situation worse. But what do? You pause. You don't let the situation control your state. You take control first. Then you act. Because again, it's not about the situation. It's about discipline. Say it again. It's not about stress. It's about discipline. Discipline to stay calm. Discipline to think clearly. Discipline to respond, not react. That's how you separate yourself. Now look at social media. Someone comments something negative. Most people react instantly. They reply. They argue. They defend. Why? Because they need to be right. Because they need validation. Because they can't control themselves. But you don't need their permission. You don't need to respond to everything. You don't need to prove anything. That's control. Sometimes the strongest response is no response. Let that sink in. Because silence is also a form of control. You have a choice. Always. React or pause. Speak or stay silent. Lose control or take control. And every time you choose the second option, you build discipline. Let's make this practical. From today, you follow one rule. When something triggers you, you do nothing for a moment. No speaking. No typing. No reacting. Just one breath. That's it. One breath changes everything. Because it interrupts the pattern. It breaks the habit. It gives you time to think. And that time is where control is built. That's the key. Now understand this. This is not easy. Your mind is trained to react fast. Your emotions are trained to take over. Your habits are automatic. But that's exactly why this matters. Because discipline is doing what's hard, not what's easy. You train this daily. In small moments. Someone annoys you, pause. Traffic frustrates you, pause. Plans change, pause. Again and again. Until it becomes natural. Until your first instinct is no longer reaction, but control. That's when your life changes. Because when you control your reactions, you control your behavior. When you control your behavior, you control your results. And that's how you build a powerful mindset. Step by step. Moment by moment. Choice by choice. Because remember, you have a choice. Always. Most people ignore it. You use it. Most people react. You decide. That's the difference. That's what will separate you in 2026. Not luck. Not talent. Discipline. Emotional discipline. Reaction control. That's your foundation. So from now on, slow down your reactions. Pause before everything. Think before you act. Decide before you respond. Because once you master this, you stop being controlled by the world. And you start controlling yourself. And that is where real power begins. But controlling your reactions is just the first step. Because even if you stop reacting externally, your mind can still be chaotic internally. Constant thoughts. Constant noise. Constant overthinking. And if you don't control that, you will still lose. So now, it's time to go deeper. From controlling reactions to controlling your thoughts. Chapter 2. Eliminate mental noise daily. Your biggest problem is not outside. It's inside. Your mind never stops. Constant thoughts. Constant replay. Constant noise. You wake up, and it starts. You go to sleep, and it's still there. Thinking. Overthinking. Creating problems that don't exist. And you wonder why you feel stressed. Why you feel tired. Why you can't focus. It's not your life. It's your mind. Mental noise is draining your power. Say it again. Mental noise is draining your power. Most people don't realize this. They think more thinking equals more control. It doesn't. It creates confusion. Because not every thought is useful. In fact, Most of your thoughts are useless, repeated, negative, unnecessary. And yet, you give them attention. You follow them. You believe them. That's the mistake. Because every thought you entertain shapes how you feel, and how you feel controls how you act. So if your thoughts are chaotic, your life will be chaotic. That's the truth. But you have a choice. You can let your mind run uncontrolled, or you can take command. Not every thought deserves your attention. Say it again. Not every thought deserves your attention. That's the rule. Simple, powerful, necessary. Let's break it down. You have a thought. What if this goes wrong? Then another. What if they think this about me? Then another. What if I fail? And now your mind is racing. Your emotions follow. Stress, anxiety, pressure. But nothing has actually happened. It's all in your head. That's mental noise. And most people live in it. All day. Every day. But you don't do that anymore. You observe. You filter. You control. Because again, you have a choice. You don't have to follow every thought. You don't have to believe everything your mind says. You don't have to engage. You can ignore it. That's discipline. Let's make it real. You're lying in bed, trying to sleep, and your mind starts replaying conversations. What I should have said. Why did I say that? What if they think? It goes on and on. You feel restless. You feel uncomfortable. You lose peace. Why? Because you followed the thoughts. You gave them attention. You fed them. But what if you didn't? What if you noticed the thought and let it pass? No reaction. No engagement. No attachment. Just awareness. That's control. Observe the thought. Don't follow it. Say it again. Observe the thought. Don't follow it. That's the skill you're building. Because your mind will always produce thoughts. That's not the problem. The problem is, you treat them as commands. They are not commands. They are suggestions. And most of them are bad suggestions. So you become selective. You choose what to focus on. Because focus is power. Where your focus goes, your energy follows. And where your energy goes, your life grows. So if your focus is scattered, your results will be scattered. If your focus is controlled, your life will be controlled. That's the key. They think too much. They analyze too much. They hesitate too much. And because of that, they do nothing. No action. No progress. No results. Just thinking. But thinking without action is useless. Read that again. Thinking without action is useless. It doesn't move your life forward. It keeps you stuck. So what do? You simplify. When your mind gets noisy, you bring it back to one question. What matters right now? Say it again. What matters right now? Not yesterday. Not tomorrow. Not imagined problems. Right now. That question cuts through the noise. It brings clarity. It brings focus. It brings control. And control creates calm. That's the system. Let's make it practical. From today, you follow 3 steps. Step 1, notice the noise. The moment your mind starts racing, pause. Recognize it. I'm overthinking. That's awareness. Step 2, stop feeding it. Don't continue the thought. Don't add more stories. Don't go deeper. Just stop. Step 3, redirect. Focus on something real. Your work. Your task. Your breath. Something in the present moment. That's control. Simple steps. But powerful. Because discipline is not complicated. It's consistent. You repeat this daily. Again and again. Until your mind becomes quieter. Stronger. Old habits will return. That's normal. But you don't stop. Because again, it's not about overthinking. It's about discipline. Say it again. It's not about noise. It's about control. Control of your attention. Control of your focus. Control of your mind. That's what you're building. And the more you train this, the stronger you become. Is a powerful mind. Let that sink in. Most people are weak because their mind is loud. You become strong because your mind is controlled. That's the difference. And people will notice. While they panic, you stay calm. While they overthink, you act. While they hesitate, you move forward. Because your mind is not working against you. It's working for you. That's the goal. To eliminate noise and create clarity. Because clarity leads to action. And action leads to results. That's how you rewire your mindset. One habit at a time. One thought at a time. One choice at a time. Chapter 3. Build discipline in small actions. Everyone wants big results. Success. Money. Respect. Freedom. But no one wants the small actions. The daily work. The repetition. The discipline when no one is watching. That's the problem. Because your life is not built in big moments. It's built in small ones. What you do daily matters more than what you do occasionally. Say it again. What you do daily matters more than what you do occasionally. That's the key. Most people wait for motivation. They say, I'll start tomorrow. I'll do it when I feel ready. I just need the right mood. No. That's weakness. Because motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. But discipline stays. It's not about motivation. It's about discipline. Say it again. It's not about motivation. It's about discipline. Discipline is doing what needs to be done. Even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. That's where most people fail. They rely on feelings. If they feel good, they act. If they don't, they stop. So their progress is inconsistent. And inconsistent effort creates inconsistent results. You don't live like that anymore. You build discipline. Daily. Through small actions. Let's make it real. Waking up. You set a time. The alarm rings. In that moment, you have a choice. Stay in bed or get up. It's a small decision. But it's not small. Because that decision sets the tone for your entire day. If you choose comfort, you weaken your discipline. If you choose action, you strengthen it. That's how it works. Discipline is built in small decisions. Say it again. Discipline is built in small decisions. Not big ones. Not once in a while. Every day. Now look at your habits. Do you finish what you start? Do you stay consistent? Do you follow through? Or do you start and stop? Start and quit? Start and delay? That's the difference between average and elite. Average people start. Disciplined people finish. That's the key. You don't need more ideas. You need more execution. Say it again. You don't need more ideas. You need more execution. Most people are full of plans. They think about success. They talk about goals. They imagine results. But they don't act consistently. And without action, nothing changes. So what do? You simplify. They think about success. They talk about goals. They imagine results. But they don't act consistently. And without action, nothing changes. So what do? You simplify. Even if it's small. Even if it feels insignificant. Because small actions compound. Day by day. Choice by choice. Until they become results. Let's go deeper. Why do people avoid small actions? Because they don't see immediate results. They want instant success. Instant progress. Instant reward. But real growth doesn't work like that. It's slow. It's repetitive. It's consistent. And most people quit before it shows. But you don't. Because you understand something they don't. Consistency beats intensity. Say it again. Consistency beats intensity. Working hard for one day means nothing. Showing up every day changes everything. That's the mindset. You don't need to do everything at once. You just need to do something every day. That's it. One task, one action, one step forward. And you repeat it again and again until it becomes automatic. That's how habits are built. And habits create identity. You don't become disciplined by thinking. You become disciplined by doing. Daily. Let's make it practical. From today, you focus on small wins. Not big goals. Small actions. Finish what you start. Show up on time. Do the work, even when you don't feel like it. That's your standard. No excuses. Because excuses destroy discipline. I'm tired. I'll do it later. I don't feel like it. These are not reasons. These are habits. Weak habits. And you replace them with discipline, with action, with consistency. Because again, you have a choice. Excuses or execution. Comfort or growth. Delay or action. Choose wisely. Every single day. Now understand this. Discipline is not about doing everything perfectly. It's about doing something consistently. Even on bad days. Even when it's hard. Even when no one is watching. That's where real strength is built. In the unseen moments. In the small decisions. In the daily actions. That's what separates you. That's what rewires your mindset. Because once discipline becomes your habit, everything changes. You stop relying on motivation. You stop making excuses. You stop quitting. You become someone who executes. And execution creates results. That's how you win. Not by thinking more. Not by planning more. By doing more. Consistently. Daily. Without excuses. Because remember, it's not about perfection. It's about discipline. Say it again. It's not about big actions. It's about small, consistent ones. That's the formula. That's your edge. That's how you build a powerful mindset in 2026. Step by step. Day by day. Action by action. And once you master this, you become unstoppable. Because you no longer depend on feelings. You depend on discipline. And discipline never fails. But there's another level to this. Because even when you act, even when you stay consistent, you can still lose power. By talking too much, explaining too much, reacting with your words. So now, it's time to refine your control even further. Chapter 4. Learn to stay silent and observe. Most people talk too much. They explain everything. They defend themselves. They react with words before they even think. And every time they do, they lose power. Understand this clearly. The more you talk, the less control you have. Say it again. The more you talk, the less control you have. Because talking without control is emotional. And emotional communication exposes weakness. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to explain everything. You don't need their permission. That's the shift. You have a choice. Speak, or stay silent. React, or observe. Lose control, or build it. Most people choose noise. You choose silence. Not everything needs a response. Say it again. Not everything needs a response. That's the key. Let's make it real. Someone challenges you. Questions your decision. Criticizes your work. Speaks with disrespect. Your instinct? Respond immediately. Defend yourself. Prove your point. Win the moment. That's reaction. And reaction is emotional. Now look at what happens next. You speak too fast. You say too much. You reveal frustration. And the situation escalates. Why? Because you didn't pause. Because you didn't observe. Because you didn't control yourself. Now imagine something different. Same situation. Same words. But this time, you stay silent. You don't rush to respond. You listen. You observe. You stay calm. What happens? You create space. You create control. You shift the energy. Because silence forces the other person to continue. They reveal more. They explain more. They expose themselves. While you stay composed. That's power. Silence is not weakness. Silence is control. Say it again. Silence is control. Most people misunderstand this. They think silence makes them look weak. They think if they don't respond, they lose. No. When you stay silent, you show discipline. You show confidence. You show that you are not easily controlled. That's strength. Let's go deeper. Why do people talk so much? Because of ego. They want to be right. They want to be heard. They want to be validated. So they explain. They argue. They try to win. But discipline doesn't need validation. Discipline doesn't need approval. Discipline stays quiet. That's the difference. You don't need their permission. Say it again. You don't need their permission. Not to speak. Not to act. Not to stay silent. You decide. That's control. Now understand this. Silence is not just about your mouth. It's about your mind. Because even when you say nothing, your mind can still be loud. You replay conversations. You argue internally. You imagine responses. That's not control. That's noise. So you train that too. When something happens, you don't just stay silent externally. You calm your internal reaction. No mental arguments. No emotional replay. No unnecessary thoughts. You observe and let it go. That's the next level. External silence is good. Internal silence is power. Say it again. Internal silence is power. Because when your mind is quiet, you think clearly. You respond intentionally. You stay in control. Now let's make it practical. From today, you apply a simple rule. Before speaking, ask yourself, is this necessary? If the answer is no, stay silent. If the answer is yes, say it briefly, clearly, without emotion. That's discipline. Because most of what people say is unnecessary. Explaining too much, talking too fast, reacting without thinking. You don't do that anymore. You slow down. You choose your words carefully. Because words carry weight. And when you use too many, they lose value. That's why powerful people speak less. Not because they don't know what to say, but because they control when to say it. That's the level you're building. Let's look at another example. Social situations. People talking. Opinions everywhere. Noise. Most people try to fit in. They speak to be noticed. They talk to be accepted. But you observe. You listen more than you speak. You understand the room. You read people. Because silence gives you information. And information gives you control. That's the advantage. When you talk, you repeat what you know. When you stay silent, you learn. Say it again. Silence teaches. Talking reveals. So you become a listener. A thinker. A controller. Not a reactor. Now understand this. This is not about being quiet all the time. It's about being intentional. There's a difference. You speak when it matters. You stay silent when it doesn't. That's discipline. And discipline builds presence. Because when you speak less, people listen more. When you stay calm, people respect you more. When you don't react, people can't control you. That's power. Real power. Not loud. Not aggressive. Controlled. So from now on, slow down your speech. Pause before responding. Observe before reacting. Because every word you don't say is energy you keep. Every reaction you avoid is control you build. And every moment of silence is strength you gain. That's how you rewire your mindset. Through restraint. Through awareness. Through discipline. Because remember, you have a choice. Talk or stay silent. React or observe. Lose control or take it back. Choose control. Always. And once you master this, your presence changes. Your energy changes. Your impact changes. Because you're no longer driven by emotion. You're guided by discipline. But there's another trap. Even if you stay silent, even if you observe, you can still lose control by becoming attached. Attached to results, attached to outcomes, attached to expectations. And attachment creates pressure. Pressure creates emotion. Emotion breaks control. So now, it's time to go deeper. Chapter 5: Detach from outcomes. Most people don't suffer because of what they do. They suffer because of what they expect. They expect results. They expect recognition. They expect things to go their way. And when reality doesn't match their expectations, they lose control. Stress, frustration, disappointment. All of it comes from one thing: attachment. Understand this clearly. Attachment creates emotional instability. Say it again. Attachment creates emotional instability. Because when you are attached to an outcome, your emotions depend on it. If it goes your way, you feel good. If it doesn't, you feel bad. That's not control. That's dependency. And dependency is weakness. You have a choice. You can depend on outcomes, or you can stay in control regardless of them. That's the shift. That's the habit. Do the work. Release the outcome. Say it again. Do the work. Release the outcome. That's the key. Let's break it down. You work hard on something. A project. A goal. A plan. You put in time. Effort. Focus. Now you expect a result. Recognition. Success. Approval. And when it doesn't happen, you feel frustrated. Why? Because you were attached. You believed your effort guaranteed a result. It doesn't. That's reality. You control your actions. You don't control the outcome. Read that again. You control your actions, not the outcome. That's the truth most people avoid. And because they avoid it, they suffer. But you don't. You accept it. You operate with discipline. You focus on what you can control. And you let go of the rest. That's power. Let's make it real. You send a message. You expect a reply. Time passes. No response. Your mind starts. Why didn't they reply? Did I say something wrong? Are they ignoring me? Now emotion builds. Frustration. Doubt. Overthinking. But nothing actually happened. The only thing that changed was your expectation. That's attachment. Now imagine something different. Same situation. You send the message. If they reply, fine. If they don't, fine. You stay the same. That's control. It's not about the outcome. It's about your discipline. Say it again. It's not about results. It's about control. Now let's go deeper. Why do people get attached? Because of ego. They want recognition. They want validation. They want things to go their way. And when it doesn't, they feel rejected. They feel disrespected. They take it personally. But discipline doesn't take things personally. Discipline understands. Not everything is in your control. And that's okay. Because peace comes from acceptance, not resistance. You don't need everything to go your way to stay in control. Say it again. You don't need their permission. Not for your effort. Not for your value. not for your direction. You do the work because it's your standard, not because of the result. That's the shift. Now understand this. Detachment is not laziness. It's not about not caring. It's about caring about the right things. You care about effort. You care about discipline. You care about consistency. But you don't attach your emotions to results. That's the difference. Most people care about results more than effort. That's why they suffer. You care about effort more than results. That's why you stay in control. Let's make it practical. From today, you apply a simple rule. Focus on process. Ignore outcome. Say it again. Focus on process. Ignore outcome. You go to the gym. You focus on showing up, not the results. You work. You focus on doing your best, not the recognition. You build something. You focus on consistency, not instant success. That's discipline. Because results take time. And if you depend on them, you will quit too early. But when you detach, you stay consistent. And consistency creates results anyway. That's the paradox. When you stop chasing results, you get better results. Because you're not distracted by emotion. You're focused on action. That's the advantage. Now let's talk about failure. This is where attachment destroys people. They try something because they were attached to winning. But failure is part of the process. It's not the end. It's feedback. And if you're detached, you see it clearly. You learn. You adjust. You continue. That's growth. Failure only hurts when your ego is attached. Say it again. It's not about failure. It's about discipline. Discipline to keep going. Discipline to stay focused. Discipline to not let emotions stop you. That's what separates you. Now understand this. Life will not go your way all the time. Plans will fail. People will disappoint. Results will be delayed. That's reality. But your response? That's your control. And when you detach, nothing shakes you. You stay calm. You stay focused. You keep moving. That's power. Because your state is no longer dependent on outcomes. It's built on discipline. Internal control. That's the goal. To act without attachment. To work without emotional dependency. To move forward, regardless of results. Because when you reach that level, you become unstoppable. You don't quit. You don't panic. You don't lose control. You just continue. Again and again. That's how you win. Not by forcing results, but by mastering yourself. Because remember, you have a choice. Attach or detach. React or stay controlled. Depend or stay independent. Choose discipline. Always. And once you master this, you free yourself from stress, from pressure, from emotional ups and downs. Because your focus is clear. Your mind is calm. Your actions are consistent. That's how you rewire your mindset. But there's another level. Because even if you detach, even if you stay focused, you can still lose power by giving your energy to the wrong things, to the wrong people, to the wrong distractions, to the wrong habits. And energy is limited. Once it's gone, your focus is gone. Your discipline is gone. Your control is gone. So now, it's time to protect what matters most. Chapter 6. Protect your energy at all costs. You don't have a time problem. You have an energy problem. You wake up with a limited amount of focus, a limited amount of attention, a limited amount of mental strength. And every decision you make either protects that energy or drains it. Most people leak energy all day. They check their phone constantly. They engage in useless conversations. They react to every distraction. And by the time it's time to do real work, they're empty. No focus. No discipline. No control. That's why they stay stuck. Because they don't protect what matters. Understand this clearly. Energy is your most valuable resource. Say it again. Energy is your most valuable resource. Not time. You can have time. But without energy, you do nothing. You waste it. You delay. You quit. So if you want control, you must protect your energy. At all costs. You have a choice. Spend it carelessly. Or invest it intentionally. That's the habit. That's the discipline. If it doesn't build you, ignore it. Say it again. If it doesn't build you, ignore it. That's your filter. Simple. Clear. Powerful. Let's break it down. Distractions. Your phone. Social media. Notifications. Every time you check, you lose focus. Every scroll. Every video. Every notification pulls your attention away. And attention is energy. So when your attention is scattered, your energy is scattered. And when your energy is scattered, your results disappear. That's the chain. But most people ignore it. They think it's harmless. It's just a few minutes. It doesn't matter. It does. Because it's not about one moment. It's about repetition. Small distractions, repeated daily, destroy discipline. That's the truth. So what do? You reduce noise. You remove unnecessary distractions. You control your environment. Because environment shapes behavior. That's the key. Now let's talk about people. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Read that again. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Some people drain you. They complain. They gossip. They bring negativity. And every time you engage, you lose something. Your focus. Your peace. Your motivation. But you stay anyway. Why? Habit. Comfort. Fear of change. But discipline requires separation. Protect your energy, even if it means limiting people. Say it again. You don't need their permission. To step back. To say no. To choose yourself. That's control. Let's make it real. You're working on something important. Focused. Productive. Then someone calls. Or messages. Or interrupts. Now you have a choice. Stop your work. Or protect your focus. Most people stop. They respond immediately. They break momentum. And once focus is broken, it's hard to rebuild. That's the cost. So what do? You set boundaries. You don't respond instantly. You don't engage in everything. You protect your time and energy. That's discipline. Because again, it's not about distraction. It's about control. Say it again. It's not about people. It's about discipline. Discipline to say no. Discipline to stay focused. Discipline to protect what matters. Now let's go deeper. Your habits. What you consume. What you watch. What you listen to. What you think about. All of it affects your energy. Negative content drains you. Useless information clutters your mind. Constant noise weakens your focus. But most people don't filter it. They consume everything. And then they feel overwhelmed. That's not accidental. That's a lack of discipline. So you change that. You become intentional. You choose what enters your mind. Because what enters your mind shapes your energy. And your energy shapes your life. That's the connection. Now understand this. Protecting your energy is not selfish. It's necessary. You cannot build anything if you are constantly drained. You cannot stay disciplined if you are constantly distracted. You cannot stay in control if your energy is scattered. So you protect it without guilt, without explanation, without hesitation. Because you understand. You have a choice. Give your energy away. Or protect it. Most people give it away. You don't. That's your advantage. Let's make it practical. From today, you apply 3 rules. Rule 1: limit distractions. Reduce phone usage. Control notifications. Create focus time. Rule 2: protect your environment. Avoid negativity. Limit draining conversations. Choose better inputs. Rule 3: set boundaries. Say no when needed. Don't respond instantly. Prioritize your work. Simple rules, but powerful results. Because discipline is not complicated. It's consistent. You repeat these daily, again and again, until it becomes your standard. And once it becomes your standard, everything changes. You feel more focused. You feel more in control. You feel more powerful. Because your energy is no longer leaking. It's directed. That's the goal. Directed energy. Focused effort. Controlled attention. That's how you win. Because success is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters. With full focus. And that requires energy. Protected energy. So from now on, be careful where your attention goes. Be selective with your time. Be intentional with your focus. Because every moment of attention is a piece of your life. And you don't waste it. Not anymore. Because remember, if it doesn't build you, ignore it. That's your rule. That's your standard. That's your discipline. And once you master this, you stop feeling drained. You stop feeling distracted. You stop losing control. Because your energy is aligned. Focused. Protected. That's power. But there's one more step. Because even with energy, if your focus is weak, you will still fail. So now, it's time to sharpen your mind even further. To build the one skill that separates winners from everyone else.